My film is called A Long Way Home. It's a documentary film I shot in China, and it basically shows 4 different Chinese artists who try to look at their own country by using their own biographies and all these political campaigns that happened in China. And it's basically their way to look to criticize the present day situation, because they believe that all these political campaigns in China, like the Cultural Revolution and the crackdown on the democracy movement in Beijing, that they have really damaged not only the political situation but also the social fabric within the country, destroying sort of the trust among people. And through their art, one is a dancer, there's a brother couple, they're painters, there's a writer, and there is an animation artist, and through their work they try to reflect on China using their own biographies. That's basically the film. It's called A Long Way Home. I've been traveling in China since more than 25 years. I was actually in China right after the massacre on Tiananmen Square in 1989. And since then I've made all my documentary films in China. Like, my first film was called Made in Hong Kong. It was about the handover of Hong Kong back to China. Like, Hong Kong used to be a British colony, and then it had to be given back to China in 1997, and it reflects sort of this situation. The second film was called Angry Monk. It's a film I shot in Tibet, and it basically tells the story of a rebellious monk who lived in the 1930s and 40s in Tibet, and he wanted political reform in Tibet before the Chinese had invaded the country. And he was very much influenced by the Indian independence movement, because he left Tibet for India in the early 30s for a pilgrimage, and then he saw all these demonstrations for Indian independence, and he was very influenced by this movement and thought that it was important to bring these ideas from India back to Tibet and open up the country. And through his biography, I sort of reflect the Tibetan situation from this historical perspective and juxtapose it with the situation in present-day Tibet. And the film before A Long Way Home, sort of my third film, is called Watermarks. And there I worked with farmers, with fishermen, with workers, and I tried to paint a portrait of China, of this half of the Chinese population that doesn't really profit from these incredible economical changes in China. Sort of, they are the disenfranchised. And sort of that's my oeuvre. But about myself as a person, I have a background in visual anthropology. I studied anthropology, but with a focus on film combined with anthropological studies. And that's how I became a filmmaker. I finished my studies at university, my master degree and my PhD in form of documentary films instead of a written thesis. And now I work in Switzerland as an independent documentary filmmaker and producer. Probably a combination. I mean, one thing in documentary filming is, initially you have to have your own idea as a filmmaker. And then you confront this idea with potential protagonists that participate in your film. So it's always a combination of my own questions, of my own vision, and then through the discussions with the protagonists, they bring in their own visions, what they want to tell. And I think the interesting part is that it's always a dialogue, or in my eyes it should be a dialogue, and not just the vision of a director who enforces his own vision on the people he works with. I think this exchange is very important, and also for me as a filmmaker very rewarding if they bring in their own ideas.